Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Park Conversations, Dilao, History and Development of the Paco District. Bago tayo magsimula sa ating talakayan, narito po muna ang ilang paalala. This Park Conversations webisode is also streaming live on Facebook through our FB page npdc.ph and will be available on demand after the live discussion. We encourage everyone to share our webinar with your social media friends and use the hashtag Park Conversations. We'd also love to hear from you during the live discussion. Kung kayo po ay may mga tanong sa ating speaker, maaari ninyo itong iparating sa amin sa pamamagitan ng Q&A button na matatagpuan sa ibabang bahagi ng inyong screen. At para naman sa ating mga viewers on Facebook, maaari ninyong i-comment ang inyong mga katanungan sa live video na ito. Note that we will do our best to accommodate all your questions subject to the availability of our speaker should we exceed the time limit. And lastly, only those who will successfully answer and submit our online survey form will receive a copy of their digital certificate. Abangan, abangan po ninyo sa chat box at comment section ang online survey link na aming ipopost. Please review your entry details before hitting submit button, especially your name as it will appear in your digital certificate. And to officially start this afternoon's interesting discussion, let's all welcome the Deputy Executive Director of the National Parks Development Committee, Mr. Jezreel Apelar.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mayan, for that introduction. And hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 11th episode of Park Conversations, brought to you by the National Parks Development Committee. And also, we'd like to thank din ang Escuela Atelier de Filipinas Foundation for also partnering with us to promote Paco Park and the Paco District. So we have an exciting topic for today in celebration of Paco Park's 200 years anniversary. We'd like to focus on the Paco District. Now, Paco is one of Manila's oldest districts. It hasn't forgotten its past with the numerous landmarks that have withstood the test of time, including war, and of course, these places, beloved places such as Paco Park, Paco Market, the ancestral homes, Plaza Dilao, among others. So this special topic that we have today, Dilao, the history and development of the Paco District, will get to know more about the area and the heritage that we have here. Thanks to our resource speaker, who I am a big fan of her work, the books and research that she's done for our heritage and our culture. I'd like to introduce Dr. Lorelei de Viana. She has degrees in she has her Bachelor of Science in Architecture and a Master of Arts in Art History and a Doctor of Philosophy in Philippine Studies from the University of Philippines, Diliman. She has also trained in stone conservation under the auspices of ICCROM and the Instituto Universitario de Arquitectura di Venezia in Venice, Italy. So she worked for the National Historical Commission of the Philippines as a conservation architect and researcher. Later on, she became the Dean of Architecture and Fine Arts at FEU and briefly a scholar in residence at FEU's Public Policy Center Foundation. So she is currently the Executive Director of the Center for Filipino Architecture of the United Architects of the Philippines. So she was consulted as a researcher, curator, and heritage expert for projects like the Rizal Shrine, Fort Santiago Museum, the Pamintuan Mansion in Angeles City, Bonifacio Trial House in Maragondon, Cavite, the ASEAN Area Project in Leyte and Iloilo, Chinatown Museum, Intendencia Restoration Project, the Metropolitan Theater Restoration Project as well. And she has authored a book on Binondo's architectural history and co-wrote a technical manual on stone conservation and contributed in drafting the Verde version 1, the first Philippine green rating system for buildings by the Philippine Green Building Council. So her research articles on heritage and history have been published in scholarly journals such as The 3 Centuries of Binondo Architecture that won NCCA Alab ng Haraya Award for Best Cultural Research and the Manila Critics Circle National Book Award under the architecture category in 2000. So she recently wrote Walk Manila, a book published by FEU on Manila's heritage sites and structures, and her doctoral dissertation, Accessoria, a historical study of the late 18th to 19th century urban apartment housing in Manila and its arrabales, was awarded Best Dissertation by the University of Philippines Diliman in 2012. So what an amazing guest speaker we have. So much to learn from. We're all very excited. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome here in PARKonversations our esteemed speaker, Dr. Lorelei de Viana.
Thank you very much. So allow me to share my screen first.
One.
Okay, so before anything else, I would like to thank NPDC for inviting me this afternoon to talk about the history and heritage of Dilao. No? It's also its development into a district. So Dilao, Paco, they are the same. So it was previously known as Dilao, the town that was founded by the Franciscans outside the walls of Intramuros, and later on it was known as Paco, a nickname of the Franciscans. Paco, it's a Catalan nickname for Francisco. Okay, so this presentation will talk about the history of Paco District within the context of the history of Manila and Intramuros, the arrabales or suburbs outside the walls, and its most important landmarks. It relieves Paco's past as the ancient village of Dilao, the settlement of Japanese expatriates, and its relocation to give way to urban cleaning and military defense strategy after the British occupation. It looks into the history of the Cementerio General de Dilao, Manila's first general cemetery outside the city walls, its significance and its continuity as one of the city's and the country's heritage sites. Okay, so we begin with the etymology. So ano ba yung Dilao? So here we see the drawing of the Dilao turmeric plant, which used to abound in the area of where Dilao used to be located. So it's Curcuma longa, the scientific name. So it's in Tagalog known as Dilao or Dilao, yon, turmeric. So it's very popular now. So we have turmeric brew. Actually, it's a labat din. Okay, so we have here the 1671 map of Ignacio Munoz. Okay, and we see here it's a map of Intramuros, but we find here the location of Dilao. So it's outside the walls of Intramuros. It was established by the Franciscans in 1580, and it is located near an estero. It's the Estero de Balete. So the first church was of light materials. When they would establish a town or a settlement, there would always be a church. So the first church was of light materials, and then later on it was destroyed in 1603 when there was a Chinese uprising. So here in this map, makikita nyo yung location of Dilao. It's just beside the Parian. So the Parian is yung letter I, very near but it's just beside the Pasig River, and adjacent to it also would be San Miguel district. San Miguel, or the village of San Miguel, before it became a district and was relocated across the Pasig River at the opposite bank of the Pasig River. Okay, so we see in this 1762 map the location of Dilao. So that's the relationship of Dilao to Intramuros. So it's outside the walls, within the range of the canons of Intramuros, and near it would be San Miguel, and the institution, the hospital that was established by the Franciscan San Lazaro, the Hospital de San Lazaro. So initially, San Lazaro was for the for the sick, no, for those who were ill with contagious diseases, especially those who had leprosy. So again, we see Parian, no, and San Anton, and down there, no, below near the Manila Bay, we see Ermita. Okay, not yet quite populated. But the rest, no, after those little villages, makikita nyo, puro mga rice paddies, puro mga agricultural land. So talagang it was still very, very bucolic outside the walls of Intramuros. Okay, now the story of Dilao is very much intertwined with the story of a Japanese daimyo or a lord. No, he was a feudal lord. He was Ukon Takayama, and he converted to Christianity and he took the name of Justo or Justus in Latin. And because of his faith, Hideyoshi, the emperor, was then very, very strict. So later he was forced into exile together with his family and with other Japanese. So there were 300, and they came to the Philippines in 1614. And they settled in Dilao. So Dilao would become what? A village where there would be a lot of Japanese expatriates. And some of them were not just ordinary Japanese. Some of them were like Justo, no? Justo Ukon Takayama, who were noblemen but had to leave Japan because of Christian persecution under the Emperor Hideyoshi. Now, because he was a very saintly person, he has been declared blessed, no, by the Catholic Church. So he is now referred to as Blessed Justo Ukon or Blessed Justo Ukon Takayama. And the picture here will be a depiction of the boat that brought them, no, Justus Ukon Takayama and his fellow Japanese, no, here. This would be the boat that brought them here in the Philippines. So this is now the official iconography of Blessed Justus Ukon Takayama. So this has been approved by the CBCP. Okay, and in fact, he has been much. He really has made a niche, no, in the history of Manila, in the history of Catholicism in the Philippines, that the Japanese, no, they gave money to have this statue of Ukon Takayama constructed in Plaza Dilao. No, it's right in front of the Paco train station. So there is a historical marker by the National Historical Institute for Justo Ukon Takayama. Okay, so again, in 1634, something happened, no? Because the Tokugawa, no, the Tokugawa Iemitsu, the shogun, no, he got quite irked, no, because there were so many Christian missionaries, so coming from the Philippines, going to Japan and converting the people. So what he did, okay, is he sent, no, a shipload of lepers as a gift to the Spanish Governor General, just to irk him, no, the Spanish Governor General, and he said, "This is my gift to you, and you take care of them if you're really a Christian." So they were taken actually to the Hospital de San Lazaro, or the Hospital of San Lazaro of the Franciscans, located in Dilao. Actually, even San Miguel also was a little village of Japanese. So, and the Japanese were not only concentrated in Dilao, they were also in San Miguel and in other parts of Manila's arrabales or suburbs. Even in the provinces of the Philippines, there were Japanese ports. Okay, now in the history of Manila, everyone would always remember the British occupation. So Spain was embroiled, no? It got entangled in the 7 Years' War. And what the British did was they sailed from India and then they attacked, no? They invaded the Philippines. They invaded Manila in 1762. What they did was to use the church of Dilao. They used the church of the Parian as strongholds, and from there, they attacked. No, they attacked the walls. They attacked Manila, and they were very successful. So Manila was actually occupied from 1762 to 1764, well, until the 7 Years' War ended. But it was a lesson that the Spaniards learned, no, that something had to be done so that the city could be protected every time there would be invasions. Okay, so yung mga Spanish military engineers, sabi nila, okay, we have to protect the city, but we have to demolish all those buildings that surround the walls. And these buildings were actually those that were in the vicinities of Bagumbayan, of Dilao, of San Miguel, of the Parian. Okay, so they said we have to clear this part, and what we will do is just to create an open area, so it will not be easy for any invader, no, for any invaders to easily conquer, no, or Manila, or invade Manila. So what they did was to demolish all the buildings. So Bagong Bayan, the sitio, the Bagong Bayan was a village under the Recollects. So actually, it was torn down, no? And there was no Bagong Bayan anymore. What was left was just an open field, the open field of Bagong Bayan. Well, actually, it was called Bagong Bayan because it was the Bagong Bayan. When the Spaniards occupied Maynila, di ba? They conquered Maynila, and renamed it Manila. Yung lahat ng mga displaced natives were allowed to settle in the new bayan, which was Bagong Bayan. So it's right there, just across the walls of Intramuros. And Dilao, all the buildings were demolished. The churches of Bagong Bayan, the Church of Dilao, the hospital of San Lazaro was demolished. And San Miguel, before that order, no, from the Spanish Governor General, was already razed by fire. So what the villagers did was they just transferred at the opposite bank of the Pasig River, and San Miguel was never rebuilt again. Okay, so kaya ang San Miguel, andun siya ngayon sa opposite bank of the Pasig River. So hindi na itinayo yung mga buildings na nasunog doon. And what about the Parian? The Parian, actually, the Spaniards were very unhappy because during the British occupation, many of the Chinese who were very unhappy with the Spaniards, they sided with the British. So talagang kumampi. So this was the time, no, para talagang magumanti yung mga Spaniards. So they expelled the Chinese. So that was in the late 18th century. No, they expelled the Chinese. There was a Chinese expulsion, and with that, of course, many of the buildings actually in the Parian was actually demolished. But during that time, no, late 18th century to the 19th century, the Spaniards were no longer very fearful of the Chinese. No? So some of them were actually allowed to stay, and they were dispersed to the different arrabales, no, or the different suburbs. And those who were allowed to stay were those who were engaged in agriculture, but many actually went back to China. Yon. So, ayan na clear. And what the Spaniards did was to create an open green space. So, dun sa open green space, dito nagkaroon ng yung malawak na paseo. No? It was a paseo, and then there was the Jardín Botánico that was placed there with a flower garden. Manila's flower garden was there right at the Jardín Botánico, which was actually the first zoological and botanical garden in the Philippines. So you can see there, no, yon. So yung immediate, within the immediate radius of Manila, dinemolish lahat ng buildings. Okay, so what happened? So as for the town of Dilao, it was relocated. So it was relocated in 1791 further south. So you see in this map, no? So it was relocated or transferred further south near Pandacan and actually very near na rin to very near Santa Ana. They were actually, ito yung mga medyo malalayo na talaga ng mga arrabales or suburbs, yung talagang very pastoral na. So it was given a new name. So the kingdom was King Ferdinand. So it was named as San Fernando de Dilao. Okay. But the villagers, no, they really loved the religious, no, the Franciscans who took charge, no, of the town, so much so that they referred to the town as Paco. Yun. Paco, the Catalan nickname for Francisco. So yun. So thus came about Paco. Okay, so we now go to one of the most important landmarks of Dilao or of Paco and how it really became very famous, not for the village, but for a cemetery. Now, King Carlos III ordered in 1787 the gradual establishment of cemeteries away from the urban centers as a means to safeguard the health of the people, no? So churches and churchyards, which were the common places of interments, were now being discouraged to allow further interments, no? So yung mga churches, no, sabi na you should start looking for a place outside of the church within your jurisdiction, which can be the Camposanto. But syempre, dahil matagal rin dumating yung decree, hindi naman agad napakinggan si King Carlos. And actually, so this will be a typical cemetery plan, and actually this would be given, no, to mga towns and villages. Well, this is a typical cemetery plan. You can have something like this. So this is a plan for the Philippines. Now, the practice actually before was, well, if you're well off, if you're part of the Principalia, and you volunteered a lot, no? Volunteered your services for the church, for the town, no? You can be interred in the church, inside the church, doon sa wall, or pwede doon sa pavement below. So what we have here is a tombstone on Binondo Church's pavement, no, right in front of the portal. So this is a Chinese na 1722 tombstone of Juan Dionisio. So that was the practice then. Pero this is already being discouraged because of the rise. Every time there would be epidemics, ganun din kadami ang nililibing sa loob ng simbahan and outside the churchyard. When there was a cholera epidemic, no, in Binondo, there were as many as 3,000 Binondo residents who died and who were actually buried in front of the church. Kaya lang, syempre, that area has been expropriated, no, is already kalye. Now, this decree of King Carlos III was reiterated by King Carlos IV. So he wrote another decree, and it dictated measures on how to construct cemeteries outside town centers. And he already banned church interments. Pero syempre, in a Pacific outpost, hindi naman lahat nasusunod. Okay, so it would really take a long time, no, before authorities would really implement the royal decree. So it was only after 10 years in 1814 that the Ayuntamiento of Manila, or the City Council, approved the construction of a new general cemetery outside Intramuros. Sabi nila, where can we place this? So sabi nila, ang pinakamalapit is actually Dilao. It's far enough, but very accessible, because they also took note of the funeral rite, no, na everybody would really walk, no, would walk from the bahay or from the church of the kung sino yung namatay, and they would really walk to the cemetery. So sabi nila, Dilao is perfect. So they actually were able to identify a site. Okay, so the cemetery was designed to be the best in the colony, and it was very interesting for its circular design and Baroque planned chapel. So this will be the an 1872 map of Manila, which will show the location of the Cementerio General de Dilao, or the General Cemetery for the city of Manila and for its arrabales or for its suburbs. And you see that there is Calle, no? Calle Nozeleda will actually direct one to the village or to the town of Paco. So the church, you can find the church there. It's in red, no? So it's malapit sa estero of Paco. Again, but you see, no, the rest would be rice fields, agricultural land, no? So talagang very, very pastoral, very rustic pa noon ang environment. Okay, so this will be the plan of the cemetery, no, that they were thinking of constructing in Dilao. So the government purchased a property owned by Juan Blanco Bermudez. So they bought this property and the works began, no, late in. So the approval for the construction was in 1814, and in the last quarter of that year, works commenced, no? So the works were under the supervision of Laureano de la Cruz, the Maestro Mayor Primero de Obras Reales, or the master builder for all the royal works, no, in Manila. Okay, so they were constructing it. So that was in 1814. But in 1820, the cemetery was not yet really completed. Hindi pa talaga tapos. In fact, when they began constructing the cemetery, they really had difficulty sourcing for funds. No? So it was really about the release of funds that really stalled, no, yung talagang full completion of the project. But then something happened. It was a cholera epidemic of 1820. Many people were dying, no? And it was described in one account that actually people were dying in the streets, and you could find karitons. May mga kariton, andun yung mga patay, no? Na yung iba namamatay na lang sa kalye, linalagay sa mga kariton. And it caused so much concern for everyone, and even the friars, because punong-puno na daw yung church cemeteries, even the interiors of the church. And even the friars, no, were already reporting for the government to please think of something, of some way, dahil malapit na masaturate yung mga sementeryo ng mga patay. So they really had to open the cemetery general, no? The general cemetery of Dilao, yung Cementerio General de Dilao, before it could be finally completed, or before it could be fully completed. So eto siya, at yung kanyang ito yung kanyang exterior. So it's circular, no? So and it was really planned to be bongga, no? Because this was the general cemetery of the capital of the colony, Manila. But Manila, the city, actually invited the people, no, from the other suburbs like Binondo, Santa Cruz, Quiapo, Santa Ana, Pandacan, even yung ibang taga-probinsya who had money to pay, no, for the nichos, were welcome, no, to have their dead interred in or buried in Paco. So it was not only the cemetery walls which had niches, yung ground din actually pwede ring maglibing sa ground. Okay, so this will be the entrance. Okay, so meron siyang circular wall. And you will notice, no, in very old pictures that you'll find mga kalachuchi trees. Actually, in many decrees, no, decrees signed by the Governor General, by the sanitation councils, that cemeteries should be planted with fragrant trees, no, or plants. And the first thing that they thought of was actually calachuchi. So the calachuchi actually it masked the scent of death, no? Kaya merong isang pari noon na tinanong sa akin, bakit ba itong yung sa likod ng kumbento namin, ang daming kalachuchi? Sabi ko, Father, baka yan yung dating sementeryo. And then he texted me after na sabi niya, ay, nag-research siya. Sabi niya, ay, oo nga, nag-research ako. Ito nga daw yung dating sementeryo. So talagang it was deliberate, very, very deliberate. Talagang nagtatanim sila ng kalachuchi. Yun. Okay, so this is in 1899. So kita niyo doon yung mga sepulturero, yung mga moso, yung mga hardinero ng Paco Cemetery. Okay. So yan, mga pictures niya. Okay, and more pictures, no? So what you'll find here will be yung paano sila naglalagay ng mga bulaklak. So merong frame, tapos nilalagay mga bulaklak, and then the picture here below was during November 1, a photograph of in the early 1900s of Paco's cemetery. But you can see, no, in the different photographs that there are instances that na puting-puti because it was also ordered, no, by the Spanish authorities that you should lime wash. Pinturahan ng kalburo because lime was actually a disinfectant. It was an antiseptic para mamatay yung mga germs. So actually in mga kartilya, no, mga kartilya kung paano sugpuin ang cholera that would be published, no, in the 19th century, naka-indicate doon na gumamit ng kalburo at pahiran ang mga walls para hindi kapitan daw yung mga nakatira sa loob ng bahay ng cholera. Yun. So, at even sa paglibing, bubuhusan mo ng lime actually yung mga patay, no, lalo na sa mga pauper's grave, no, bubuhusan mo ng lime para hindi mangamoy. Now, Paco Cemetery is very, very historical. So when it was established, its original residentes, no, were the victims of cholera. But later on, those who were executed for crimes by the Spanish authorities were brought here, and this would include sila Fathers Gómez-Burgos and Zamora, who were implicated in the Cavite Mutiny of 1872. So sabi, sila daw ang may pakana ng Cavite Mutiny. So sila ay inexecute by garrote at sila ay inilibing in an unmarked grave in Paco Cemetery. So this is actually the memorial to Gomburza here, no, it's in the outer, no, sa pagpasok mo right near the entrance to the right, no, it's a memorial to the 3 martyred priests. And it's also, no, the place where Rizal's remains after his execution in Bagong Bayan were brought, no, so his remains were actually buried, no, in an unmarked grave, and the sisters really had to look, no, they had to look throughout, no, they went through all the cemeteries of Manila, and they were asking everyone kung may nilibing doon na bagong libing, no, and when they went, one sister nagpunta dito at sinabing dito nga may inilibing. Yun nga, nalaman na yun ay si Jose Rizal. But later on, right after the defeat of Spain, in the Spanish-American War when they lost and they had to give up the Philippines, and the Americans took over immediately. Rizal's sister went to the American authorities and requested permission to exhume his remains. So they were able to exhume, and an urn was made for him, for the remains of Jose Rizal, and these were kept by the family until the monumento in Luneta was constructed, and his remains have been placed there. So it's also historical because here, General Henry Lawton, he was one of the major generals who came here during the Spanish-American War and the Philippine-American War. He died in the Battle of San Mateo in 1899, and they had a 9 days wake in the chapel of Paco cemeteries. Doon siya inilagay ng 9 araw at doon nagkaroon ng wake before his remains were brought back to the United States. So actually makikita niyo yung chapel. It used to have a bell actually, and the bell was from the foundry of Hilario Zunico, the famous bell maker from Binondo. Okay, so Spain lost, Spain lost in the Spanish-American War, and so they had to they fought with the Americans who were deployed here, and then there came about the Philippine-American War, and so maraming American soldiers namatay, and those who died were actually buried here in Paco Cemetery, doon sa ground. Kaya yung inaapakan ngayon, yung mga namamasyal, yun yung dating grave, yung graves ng mga dead American soldiers. So ito yung nililibing. So ito yun. So they had a public subscription, So many soldiers died, and the American public were invited to donate, so that tombstones made of Italian granite could be erected, on top of the tombs of the many soldiers who died, and many Americans actually subscribed, they donated money. So we see this, yan yung mga maraming mga patay, and they called this the battery knoll. Okay, but there came a controversy. There came about a controversy. So John C. Meehan, who was the American who was in charge of the park, binenta niya yung mga tombstones kasi nirepatriate niya yung ang mga bangkay sa Amerika. So nung na-repatriate na yung mga bangkay, edi wala nang silbi yung mga tombstones. So all the tombstones were auctioned. So nagkaroon ng bidding. Ginagawa itong Bureau of Science building. So binili. So the Americans who donated money were so aghast. They were so angry because these were memorials to our dead young men. Why are you now stepping down on their memorial? So nagkaroon talaga ng furor, ng anger over that. So pero the controversy died down because eventually the Bureau of Science became the best research center in this part of Asia, and the many experiments and the many scientific researchers conducted there were were very important, but were considered important by the scientific community. Kaya nawala na yung controversy na yun. Okay, so this will be, and eventually Meehan would die and Jardín Botánico would be named after him. So that's the Jardín Botánico. Okay? And the site, yung bahay ng chaplain ng Paco Cemetery, convert later on as the fire station during the American period. Yan. Okay. So how do you relate, no, Paco Cemetery with the rest of the other cemeteries in Manila? So we just contextualize it. It was really the best. It was really bongga. It was circular. It had two circular walls. It had a beautiful, no, it had a beautiful chapel. But there is also another circular cemetery. It's the Church of Malates Cemetery. But later on, during the American period, it was ordered demolished. No, all the church cemeteries were ordered closed. No, because it was no longer hygienic. They were no longer hygienic or sanitary. Kaya now it's now known as the Remedios Circle. But like Paco, it was also circular. And what about yung iba, hindi rin kasing bongga ng Paco, no? So you find here in Tutuban, Tutuban was actually a cementerio. So that's the cemetery of Tondo. And when Tutuban could no longer accommodate, no, the dead, they had to build another cemetery in Lecheros, near Lecheros Street now in Tondo. And the cemetery in Santa Cruz will be the one in front, yung sa may arco, going to Umpin. That's the cemetery of Santa Cruz Church. And what about Pandacan? The cemetery of Pandacan was not as nice as that of Paco, but it was located near the Pasig River. Okay, and what about Santa Ana? Well, it was located a little, no, a little off the church, but near the river again. Actually, in the directives, no, ang sementeryo dapat malapit sa bodies of water para madali daw ma-wash away, mag-erode sa water, yung mga effluents ng mga patay. So that was their logic then. Okay, now actually there was a cholera epidemic in 1882. So, and Paco Park was already saturated, and the sepulturero, the many sepultureros were already complaining, hindi na raw sila natutulog dahil oras-oras naglilibing sila, na even yung kanal, yung culvert, nililibingan na nila ng patay. So that in October 4, 1882, the Ayuntamiento of Manila decided, okay, let's have a new cemetery for the towns of Ermita, Paco, and Malate. And this is, you see that, that's now the site of Harrison Plaza. Okay, but there's another one. Binondo was the most affluent town outside, no, outside of the walled city. It was the most affluent. Therefore, it had the most affluent, the nicest, one of the nicest cemetery chapels. Also, actually much nicer than the one in Paco Cemetery. So this is in La Loma, Cementerio de Binondo. Okay, now we go to Paco Church. So Paco Church later on was rebuilt in stone after the demolition. No? So it was rebuilt in stone in the new location. So it was located near the river. But it would be destroyed during the Philippine-American War in 1899. So this would be what would remain of the church. And actually, you see here in this photograph, Filipino dead from Paco Church kasi nagkaroon ng fighting, and many of the insurgents of the Filipino revolutionaries were inside Paco Church. So pinatay sila doon, and ito na yung mga patay, no? In 1899. And actually, in Paco, the US, no, the US soldiers built offices, so like this telegraph office near Paco Bridge, sa may palengke. And this will be, there was a blockhouse in Paco, and they were able to capture the Americans. They captured the Philippine flag, no, there, no. And in fact, no, in Paco, there were barracks of the US infantry there. And in fact, the charge, no, the fighting in Paco became so sensational, so that it was even reported in American tabloids. And it will be interesting to know that actually, no, in the area of Dilao in Paco, there was a bullfighting arena. So kung you're interested to know, it's that area sa likod, actually sa may likod o halos katapat nitong Manila Science High School. Kaya siya ay public property. Yon, kasi state property siya noon. So meron siyang bullfighting arena noon dyan sa harap lang ng sementeryo. Yon. And another one educational institution in Paco, so this is part of Paco heritage, would be the Concordia College, donated by Margarita Rojas de Ayala. So she donated her hacienda, her land, for a girls' school. And actually, Jose Rizal, during his time, would frequent the school because his sisters were internas, no? Interna dyan sa Concordia College. And actually, he was nanliligaw kay Segunda Katigbak, who was a classmate of Rizal's sister. And another institution of welfare would be the Asilo de San Vicente de Paul, established by the Daughters of Charity in 1885. Okay, but it was very well known because of the beautiful embroidery that the internas, no, did on piña cloth, on sinamay. So the products, the embroidered products of the asilo were very, very famous. And the asilo women were also famous. Many widowers, mga byudo, at saka yung naghahanap ng asawa, they would go here in this orphanage, no? And look for prospective wives. Actually, dito rin ang galing yung actually yung mother ni Imelda Marcos. She was an interna here. So this is now asilo. It used to be called also Looban College, Colegio de Looban, because the street doon sa isang side ay Looban Street. Now, in 1911, during the American period, the Americans made inroads actually in sanitation and hygiene, and they constructed Paco Market. So, ito yon, another by William Parsons, no? And this would be some of the houses that were in Paco, no? But you can see na dirt road, walang culverts. But then the Americans had to improve this. They instituted sanitary barrios. So Paco became a model sanitary barrio, especially that area near Merced Street, no? In sa may Calle Heran. One of the most famous buildings in Paco would be the Paco train station, built in 1914, part of the Burnham Plan for Manila. Now, also, another famous landmark would be the Gabaldon School, known as the Jefferson Elementary School, which is now the Dr. Celedonio Salvador Elementary School in Paco. So this will be the product of Isauro Gabaldon's bill that became a law, which appropriated ₱1,000,000 for the construction of public schools all over the country. And that is William Parsons, siya yung architect ng mga Gabaldon schools. Now later on, no, okay, dahil nasira nga no ang Paco, and many of the some of the Spanish clergy went back to Spain, no, with the coming of the Americans. Paco came under the spiritual administration of the Belgian CICM, no, yung short, the Belgian Short Fathers. So they constructed a new church, and this is the new church with two bell towers with spires, no? Yon, may steeple. And one of the landmarks again would be actually one of the more prominent residents of Paco would be the Laurels, no? Yung, the Jose P. Laurel, who became the wartime president of the Philippines during the Japanese occupation, actually bought this house, no, from a Spanish grandee, from a prominent Spaniard, no, and he bought this during the pre-war period, and this became his house, no, during wartime. He did not want to live in Malacañang. Actually, he resided here with the rest of his children. And actually, Paco was also known to be the residence of many prominent people. The Perez Manilios, Mascunianas, the Aquinos were also here, and the Rizal, no, the Rizal family, those especially sa branch ni Pasiano Rizal. So one of the most famous houses also would be the Bartolome and Rosario Garcia de Pon's house in Paco, which won the second prize for best house design in 1931. So it's just very, very near the Paco train station, no? But it has been demolished recently, so the owner sold the property and the developer has other ideas. And of course, the settlement house of the Damas de Filipinas, so built in 1927, no? Okay, but this was destroyed by a fire, so this is a brand new one. And one of the Art Deco, actually this is exotic Art Deco, no? Exotic Art Deco with Moorish elements. This will be the Bellevue Theater, no, along Calle Heran or Heran Street. It would be one of the few remaining works of Abelardo La Fuente, the first Spanish architect of Shanghai. No, he became the architect of Mr. Ramos, no, a Spaniard who introduced cinema in Shanghai, and he built a lot of Art Deco buildings in Shanghai. So that's Abelardo La Fuente. But it's now no longer a sinehan, no, hindi na. And one of the pre-war buildings in streamlined deco style in Paco, no, would be the Paco building, built in 1939. Okay, it's near the Palenque. Okay, now Paco was being bucolic before an open land. It attracted also industrialists. So the Coca-Cola bottling company actually had office here. It had its factory here in Otis, which is now Pascuason. However, it has been na-demolish na, no, a big portion, and the lot has been bought by Landers Superstore. And you have Kuya J now occupying, no, one of the yung ground floor ng what used to be the Coca-Cola plant. So yan, no. And of course, where Robinson's Otis is now, it used to be the place where the Manila Gas Company was. No? So nandun yung kanyang mga buildings. Yon, Manila Gas Company in Otis. And along Canonigo Street, another industrialist and shoemaker, no, would be the Hale Shoe Company. So the Hale Shoe Company was founded by Frank Hale. So originally, nagbebenta siya ng sapatos sa mga American soldiers in Fort Stotzenburg, no? Now Fort Bonifacio. And later on, he became so famous, he came up with a store and with the brand Esco shoes, no? Yun. But it has been demolished, no? Nabenta na siya. Nakatayo na dyan ng Avida Ultima. Now, Paco is also famous for having the Church of Peña Francia in Gomez Street. So the people pay homage, they venerate a mantle. It's a mantle, no? Para siyang painting, a painting of the Virgin of Peña Francia. And it's said to be much, much older than the image of Peña Francia in Naga, in Bicol. Now, Paco, as a district, also bore the brunt of the Second World War. No? So it was destroyed during a major portion of it would be destroyed during the Second World War. So you can see here an aerial view. You can see the dome of the church and the two bell towers, what remained of the Palenque and of Paco building. And the Bellevue Theater here, no, destroying roof niya. So you can see, no, actually south of Manila bore the heaviest brunt, no, of the battle for the liberation of Manila. But the northern districts hindi masyado. North of the Pasig River, hindi. So actually, Paco is very interesting kasi it's multi-ethnic also. There are a lot of Chinese in Paco, but there are also a lot of Indians. So ito yung Sikh temple along Isaac Peral, which is now UN Avenue. Okay. And of course, you cannot think of Paco without thinking of Paco Catholic School. So Paco Catholic School would be the parochial school established by the Belgian fathers. And in the 1950s, it became the largest. It became to be known as the largest parochial school in the world. Now, Paco, no, has been re-emerging again, no, within the urbanizing elements, no, that would be happening now in the city. But one problem would be how the estero of Paco came to be polluted over the years. So you can see the estero before and the estero, no, but through conservation efforts, no, uh, done by the Pasig River group, no, through the leadership of Gina Lopez, no, it has been cleaned, it has been dredged, and plants have been brought there, no, mga lilies, yung kita yung mga lily at the sides, and esplanade has been created along the estero, no, to make the estero clean and picturesque, and to make it very a living ecosystem again. Okay, so today we see Paco trying to reclaim its heritage through revitalization projects and conservation within a modernist setting that has become the very threat to losing heritage from landscape and memory. Yet the modernity that is seen in Paco shows that the district is more alive than ever as it continues to create its own story and history by regenerating itself in the realm of it should be placemaking amid cultural diversity, economic changes, and urbanization. So that ends my presentation on Paco, and I hope marami kayong natutunan. Maraming salamat po.
Wow, Dr. Viana, that was a fantastic talk. One of our viewers is even saying, wow, information overload. And I think that's a good thing. Marami po kaming natutunan ngayong gabi sa inyo. And
maraming salamat din. Oo.
Yeah, so we
Kulang
are...
pa nga.
What's that? What's... Meron pa?
Kulang pa. Marami pa akong na-miss, like the Deco buildings, Art Deco buildings, marami pa in Paco, the Fabie Estate, the Perez Manilio buildings. But maybe in the future siguro.
Yeah, we can save that for another talk. But wow, amazing history. And I drive through Paco every day, and so I'm always at awe of the heritage that we have that has survived over the years. Of course, we've lost many many over time in such a short amount of time, but I think with what we're doing here, awareness is important. Awareness to the public, the importance of shedding light, the importance of keeping and treasuring, preserving our heritage. Yes. So yeah, this brings us to our question and answer portion. So sa ating mga viewers, kung may mga tanong po kayo, feel free to ask away. Dr. Viana has time to answer some of your questions about the history and the development of the Paco district or in Manila heritage in general. So because we're very lucky to have an expert in this field tonight. So we do have one question so far. This comes from Miss Abigail Shoponko. So what are sanitary barrios, and why were they referred to as sanitary barrios?
Okay, so when the Americans came here, they found out that many of the streets in Manila, actually many of the barrios, many of the villages, many of the towns were actually not really improved. They had dirt roads, and because they were dirt roads, definitely there would be no culverts, no canals at the sides. And they found out that the households had no proper toilet facilities. So they introduced proper toilet facilities, and they came up with a model. So a model would be that a sanitary barrio, a barrio which will have houses with proper toilet facilities where hygiene can be observed, while sanitary systems are in place, where roads will have canals, where roads will be asphalted. So yon, no? So that would be one of the contributions actually of the Americans to urban development in
Oh,
the Philippines.
that's wonderful. Okay, a second question is there a significant reason why kalachuchi was the chosen flower to mask the scent of death in cemeteries as opposed to other varieties? And
Oo. Kasi ano, ang kalachuchi is very, very pungent kasi. It's very, very pungent and it's tropical. So it really abounded, no? It still abounds, no, in the Philippines. So it's tropical, it's easily available, and it's very, very pungent. Ayun, no? So actually, kalachuchi also because it's a tree. So it can provide shade
mm,
also. So kung meron ka lang gumamela or ano, mali, there are just shrubs, di ba? But kalachuchi grows up to become a tree, eh. So it provides shade, it provides fragrance, no? So it masks the scent of death. Yun. Okay? It was really favored.
mhm, mhm. Wonderful.
Mhm.
Learned something new. Okay, so going back to cholera, no, and sanitation. So it seems like Manila continuously had issues of cholera over the last couple of you know centuries. Even I think even in the 60s there were still huge. There was an outbreak of cholera in the cities. But the one that's related, but
Yeah,
nor
yeah,
the,
sure.
mm-mm. The one that was related to the 1820 and the ones before that, they were all attributed to trade. Is that correct? To contact.
Actually, oo, okay. So actually the cholera morbo, the 1882 cholera morbo that came here came via the ships that came from Hong Kong,
Okay.
that brought vegetables, that brought food, no? So since the people were not also very sanitary in their ways, it was very easy, no, for the cholera germ to propagate. And cholera is very, very vicious, no?
Mm.
Mabini, di ba si Apolinario Mabini, when he came back, he drank a glass of milk na dinapuan lang ng langaw. And then, after a day namatay na siya, it was cholera.
It's cholera.
Ay, oo, yun. So, and cholera easily, because the people were not practicing sanitation, they would bathe, they would get water from the wells, they would wash near the wells, they would take a bath near the wells. So, there was really no sanitation. Kaya madaling, it was very easy for people to contract uh, cholera.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's interesting.
Oo. And yeah. And there was an account also by Dr. Victor Heiser, an American doctor, and he wrote a book, no, about his experiences here. So the people, no, in Manila, so they were there, no, sa may Tondo area, yung beach area, biglang may nag-shoot na water, and the people went running towards that may nag-shoot na gano'n. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. And they got containers, they drank the water, gano'n. And later on, the authorities discovered it's a busted sanitary pipe.
Oh no.
So so, so ayun. So it was also a problem then by Dr. Z. He wrote, no, in his accounts na talagang it was really a problem containing cholera, containing viruses, versus the way the culture, no, the
Mm,
way they had to also manage with the culture of the Filipinos. Yun. They believed
wow.
in miracles. They believed in something na yun, biglang may nag-spurt na water, o miracle daw yun. So, ininom nila pala busted pipe.
Oh no.
Yun.
Wow, that's an interesting account.
Mhm.
Wow. I also read somewhere that I think there was even prejudice against some of the foreigners, nor the expatriates that were living
Yes.
at that time because of the cholera. They believed that they were the ones who brought, you
That
know,
was in, yeah, that was in 1820. That the time when Paco was open. So in 1820, there was a cholera epidemic. And there was actually a rumor that the foreigners were the ones who brought them here. And during the time, there was a French expedition, natural scientists, no? They were here, tinitingnan nila yung mga plants, mga ano. So naging ano sila, they were suspected, and then many British people were here, so they were suspected. So actually in Cavite, in Tondo, in many parts of the Arabales, of the suburbs, many foreigners were killed. In Binondo, many were killed, and some were actually in Cavite, marami ring namatay. So, and one chronicler, no, one a Russian, no, a Russian, he wrote a first person account of what was happening. He said that the Spaniards were not doing anything. They were not doing anything. So they said that maybe it was the people who spread the rumors that the foreigners were the ones who spread cholera. They were the Spaniards themselves, because that was the time, 1820, that the British were opening merchant houses here. Now they were envious of the foreigners. Yun yung naging ano,
Very
that was a comment. Yes.
I was also very fascinated by the Japanese settlement. Um, I guess
Yes.
there, did the Japanese community eventually integrate with Philippine society? Like, did those or did they go back to Japan at some point? The Japanese had settled in the Paco area.
Actually, some of the Japanese married, no, they married Filipinos, and
Mm.
some of them actually went. Some went back, no. Yung actually the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Takayama, he brought his family here, but then he died after 40 days. No, 40
Oh,
days after arriving here, he died. But the wife went back to Japan. Yes, oo, yon. But the others, they were assimilated, no, in Philippine society through marriage.
okay.
Yon.
Very
Yes.
similar to the Sepoys, that were brought by the.
Yes, oo, oo. They loved it here. They stayed and they married. Oh.
But the Indian community that's in Paco, is there a historical connection or reason why they chose Paco, or it just
No. Yeah, I'm not really sure, but there has been a study on that. No, there has been a study on the history of the Indian community in Paco, but I am not really very familiar, no, with
okay?
that. Well, that's some it's a gray area again, no, to be explored.
Yeah, something, maybe another research, another research for you. We have another
Mm-hmm.
question. What were the notable achievements of the Bureau of Science building that took place there? So,
There were many notable achievements, no? So, kasi the Bureau of Science, which but occupied that building, would make inroads in research, in scientific research. It was affiliated with the College of Medicine of the University of the Philippines. It was established by the Americans. It was also affiliated with the PGH, with the Philippine General Hospital, which during the time would also be considered the best, no, the best facility in terms of healthcare in this part of Asia. So actually, because of medicine and research and the hospital, no, actually this UP, the Bureau of Science, the PGH, and the College of Medicine really made inroads in scientific research. But you can see that they published, the Bureau of Science journals. They have in rare book collections. You can read many achievements that they had during the pre-war period. Bureau of Science journal,
I believe Maria
and they
Orosa.
featured the building. Yes, oo, yan. Of PGH, di ba?
Yeah.
Yes. si Paz Mendoza Guason.
Yeah, many
Mm.
many of our
Oo,
amazing
yeah.
artists.
Oo, oo.
It's a shame we lost that in the Battle of Manila, correct? It's
Yes, oo, oo.
and I think it's when I see that photo, I'm really amazed at the architecture. It's done in the California mission style, right?
Yes, California mission style. Yes, yes.
Can you share with our viewers the California mission style architecture, Dr. Deviana?
Okay, okay. So when the Americans came here, they noticed that the climate would be similar with the climate also in the southern part, no, in the southern part of California, which really was part of Mexico before. So and the California mission cell, which would mission, no, in Pueblo, mission Pueblo style. So the elements there would be incorporated also in the architecture of the consulting architect, no, of the Bureau of Architecture here. So sila ano yon, sila Edgar Caborn, architect Edgar Caborn, and then William Parsons,
Mhm.
who replaced him. So they introduced the California Mission Cell, and you can see it there in the Bureau of Science building, and especially in the Philippine Normal School. It was then the Philippine Normal School. Of course, it's not the Philippine Normal University. But this two, ito yung pinaka magandang example, no, of the California mission style here. But the rest kasi, Daniel Burnham advocated the City Beautiful movement here, and the stamp of the City Beautiful movement for civic buildings is the neoclassical style or the neoclassical revival. So for civic buildings talaga, there was an advocacy to use the classical style.
Style.
Also, you see it in the post office, you see it in the legislative building, in the municipal halls, yun. But the Americans, they really introduce a lot in terms of yung sanitation and hygiene. They established beauty culture centers, maternity centers,
Right.
clinics everywhere. Yun. Mm-mm.
That's wonderful.
And especially the use of the septic tank in households. Yun.
Yeah,
Yes, and toilets. No, yun.
that's an
Real
important.
functional toilets.
Right, right.
The pill system.
Mhm. And of course, we have
Mm-hmm.
other, prominent styles during the American period, such as Art Deco, which we
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Oo, yun. Art Deco as well for civic buildings, it was the neoclassical. But for the rest, no, it was really what would be prevalent in the West, no? The Filipinos would follow, and especially if you're a businessman, you want to show off that you're at par, no? You're avant-garde with the rest of the world, no? So you'll have in your brand new building maybe Art Deco lines in geometric deco, in exotic deco, in streamline deco. So yun, no? So this will be the branding of establishments.
Mhm.
Yun. Mm-mm.
That's right. I mean, I'm a big
Mm.
fan of Art Deco as well.
Mm.
I love the Art Deco style.
Mhm, mhm.
The movie theaters that in of Manila, fantastic examples of Art Deco. Okay.
Yes. Oo, oo. And Paco had also cinemas, diba yung Dart, there was Cinema Dart, yun, and of course Bellevue. Meron mga it had three cinemas, no, during the time, no, during the pre-war period when cinemas talaga pinupuntahan ng mga tao. Yun.
Amazing.
And Paco also had it was like Paco was like actually Malate and Ermita. So during the Spanish colonial period, what would be developed would be the districts north or the towns north of the Pasig River. Hindi talaga na developing south to protect the walled city.
To protect
So
the
it was so it was really intended that southern part that's part south of the Pasig River should remain that way bucolic pastoral to protect the walled city. Kasi that's the political center, di ba? The educational center, the religious center. It had to be protected. It was really symbolically the capital. Although by the end of the 19th century, nag-expand na yung capital. But during the American period, they realized that there was so much land to be developed in the South. Kaya when they developed subdivisions, properties were offered in Malate, yan yung in Malate, and then Taft Avenue area, and then yung Ermita, and then Paco. Santa Ana was actually a vacation area, R&R area yan. Nandiyan yung Manila Boat Club of the British since the Spanish period, no? So but the southern portion, it was actually developed by the Americans during the American period, and prominent landowners like the Perez Samanillo family, they developed a portion of their property in Paco, no, into prime properties, mga malalaking bahay nandyan, yung near Looban Street, and then yung sa may Paco Park. There used to be very, very big mansions there, no? Developed by the Perez Samanillo brothers. And then the Miguel Fabi, the rich Spaniard, he had an estate near the Paco, between the Paco station and Concordia College. He developed it, so that's Fabi Estate. Yon. So, ito yung mga rich residents before ng Binondo. Because Binondo before was the Forbes Park nung unang panahon, and together with Malacanang, with San Miguel District, ito yung mga high-end. But during the time when the southern districts were developed, nag-exodus na rin. The rich from the northern districts did an exodus from old Binondo, from old Santa Cruz, from old Quiapo. Nag-exodus sila, and they bought properties in the southern portion, in Malate, along Taft, in Paco, in San Juan. So ito yung mga na-develop talaga. Yun. Kaya nandiyan yung mga prominent kolehios, di ba? Nandiyan, nagkaroon ng De La Salle, nagkaroon ng at yung Ateneo na develop dyan. Nilipat when Ateneo in Intramuros got burned, it moved to the old Escuela de Maestros, which they also maintained, no? Which is now near the Manila Observatory sa Padre Faura. And Assumption was there, and then St. Paul's. So ito naging hub, itong Malate Ermita ng rich people talaga.
During the
and Taft Avenue. Yeah. Yes, Pasay.
Where Polo Club used to be also.
They all used to be bucolic, pastoral, agricultural, but by the but during the pre-war years, they were really developed na.
Very interesting. I didn't know Harrison was
cemetery siya. Since the Spanish period, cemetery na siya talaga. Oo.
In Daniel Burnham's plan.
Kasi yun nga because of the cholera epidemic of 1882. In 1882 talaga, it was really terrible. Beginning August, October, November, December, there was a daily toll. It was published in the Gaceta de Manila. So every day merong dyan, lahat ng cemeteries nakalista, tapos ilan yung patay na nililibing. Ganun ka-terrible yung cholera epidemic noon. Na talagang all the parish cemeteries were saturated with dead people. The authorities had to establish Cementerio de la Loma. They had to establish yung sa Harrison Plaza, that area. Yung sa La Loma, they bought property from the Legarda Tuason family yon. Oo. So they bought that property and created and established the Cementerio de la Loma. Tapos, during that period then, near the Hospital de San Lazaro, yung sa may Rizal Avenue, they established a cementerio where the Espiritu Santo church is now. Sementeryo yun dati ng Santa Cruz. Kasi punong-puno na rin yung yung mga churchyards. Yun. Kaya they had to oo.
Fascinating.
Oo.
And I believe Harrison Plaza now will be SMDC condos from what I heard.
Ganon. Baka with free multo. With free resident ghost. Ayun.
Yeah. Another question from one of our viewers. Ano po ang connection ng Paco Park sa Luneta aside nung kay Rizal at Gomburza po? That's from one of our viewers.
Well, the relationship of Paco Park to Luneta, well, actually, Paco Park during the time it was conceived, it was really a cementerio. Well, Luneta was not. Luneta was actually a paseo. It was a promenade. It was where people went, strolled, no? In the late afternoon, there would be a band playing there. Sometimes it would be the Bilibid band that would be brought there and would play tunes. Yun, no? So yun, ganon. So the only connection now is now. No, both are parts now. Yun, no. Paco Cemetery is now park. That's the oo.
If we're talking
and in connection lang pati pala, those were executed in Bagumbayan, where some of them were actually buried in Paco Cemetery. Yun. That's the connection.
If we're talking about a physical connection, we can also talk about the 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐭𝐨𝐫𝐲, right?
Yes. 𝐾𝐢𝐬𝐭𝐨𝐫𝐲, which is now General Luna, no? General Luna Street.
That's right. Which I think now you cannot. It used to connect all the way from Paco Park. You can go through Luneta, diretso.
Yes, it connected. Yeah, it connected the cemetery to Luneta.
Which is no longer the road is still there today, but it's no longer connected. Once you get to Luneta,
wala na because you have a major thoroughfare na eh. You have Taft Avenue. So it blocks yung direct connection.
Fascinating. I think that's a wealth of information that we've learned from you today. We're really
thank you also for inviting me. Salamat.
Busog po kami. I'm full of exciting knowledge from you, and we do hope that this won't be the last time that we get to hear from you again, Dr. Yes, po.
I forgot pala something. Okay.
Yes,
so
please
the oldest lapida you have there is 1882. That dates back to the cholera epidemic. The oldest lapida, yung marble lapida that you have there dates back to 1882.
In the Paco Park.
Yeah, and in 2003, I was able to talk to a groundsman, Jaime Adas. So I was doing research on the cemetery. See, it was my term paper before, Paco, cemeteries. Okay, and he told me that he was there when it was being cleaned up in the 1970s, yung kay IP Santos. So the niches were actually being cleaned kasi yung iba may mga ahas na daw. And when they saw actually metal coffins. Then I did my research. The Americans, in the early 1900s, because ang dami nga namamatay sa bubonic plague, ang dami namamatay sa cholera. So the health authorities said that all dead people should be interred in metal coffins. So I was able to connect what he said to what I saw, what I saw in the books. Na yun nga, metal coffins. Yun. And when they opened some of the niches na may mga ahas, sabi nung groundsman, actually, it's like in the Bible, talagang yung iba, ang natira na lang daw hair, talagang lupa na lang daw.
Wow.
Yun. Yun. His name was Jaime Adas. I don't know if he's still around.
Not
Oo.
sure if maybe some of our
That was in 2003 and he was already parang elderly na rin siya noon. Yun,
okay, Jaime
yun.
Adas.
So yun lang. Oo.
Yeah, we still have a few mga lapida left there.
Yes. Oo.
Yeah, but we'd love to learn more about the families and the names of the people that were buried there.
Mhm.
Of course, aside from
Oo.
Gomburza. If you could,
Oo.
yeah, we,
Meron pa ba? May bumibisita pa daw, di ba? During every November 1 or
Ah.
November 2.
That's what they say.
Oo.
Bisita of a different
alam ko.
dimension. I'm just kidding.
Kasi one of the lapidas there, kasi I was contacted by GMA. Okay.
yes.
Just before November 1, and sabi nila they were able to trace the family of the relatives, no? The surviving relatives of the person in that lapida. Yung 1882 ba yon? Yon. Na-trace nila and they live in Santa Cruz, in Manila.
Okay. Interesting. Not the Carriedo family. It's
No.
𝘓𝘓𝘶𝑗𝑚 siguro. Yeah. Well, if you could share your dissertation with us on the park, that would be really cool. Love to read that one day.
Sige. Sige. I'll send you if you want. And also promo, pwede ba mag-promo? We have a book, Dilao.
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is Dilao authored by 𝘕𝘪𝘵 and myself. So it's Dilao Urban and Cultural History of Paco. So it was published by the NCCA through a grant. Okay, and it is available through Facade Books.
Wonderful.
To get your copy.
So please get a copy of Dilao. All right, wonderful. What other exciting work are you working on, Dr. Viana, in this time?
Now, I'm doing translation of a book on building construction techniques during the Spanish period, and yun nga, I plan to publish also my dissertation on accessorias 18th century to 19th century urban housing in Manila and in the Arabales.
Exciting.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
So thank you again on behalf of the
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po. We're very
maraming salamat din. Oo. So, happy 200 years? 200, 100 years? Ilan na ba? Ilang years na?
200
years. 200, no? 200 years. 1820.
Yeah.
Oo, happy 200 years. O, tamo? Oo.
Wala
naman 200-year graves dyan. Wala na.
wala naman. Yeah,
200-year-old graves.
We haven't encountered yet. Maybe 200-year-old ghosts.
Wala na. Hindi kasi you know why? Kasi there was when pag naglibing ka dyan, you had to sign an agreement. So after 3 years, you don't renew your contract with the cemetery authorities. They will open the nicho and put the remains of your relative in a common grave, and then the lapida nga will be sold through an auction. So baka yung iba hindi na na-renew, kaya nasa common grave na lang yung
mass graves.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. I think you use the likod, right? The mass grave in the back. Yeah. Interesting, very interesting. So thank you once again on behalf of NPC.
Thank you.
And of course, to all our viewers, please check out the book Dilao by Dr. Lorelei Viana and architect 𝘕𝘪𝘵. Yes. So, and also thank you to all our viewers in Zoom and Facebook Live for joining us this evening and making this PARKonversations webisode a success. So we'd love to hear from you. So please fill out our survey in the comments section below or in the chat box if you're in Zoom. And of course, please follow us on social media. We have some exciting events coming up as well. The Manila Heritage Concert, which we are promoting. It will be shown on December 13 at 8 p.m. This is in partnership with a lot of the cultural agencies of our in the area, such as DT-CAM, City of Manila, our DOT family with Intramuros Administration, Nayang Filipino Foundation, Museum Pambata, and National Museum of the Philippines. And of course, we will be featuring our heritage sites with the music of Hot Dog, and we have contemporary artists performing the wonderful music of Hot Dog. And of course, if you didn't know, the Hot Dog Garcia boys were inspired by Paco and by Paco Park in Manila, as they were living in Paco during the time they were recording and writing the songs, their hit songs. So please remember to check it out, December 13 at 8 p.m. on Facebook Live, on the Facebook pages of NPDC and our partner agencies. So once again, maraming salamat po. Thank you, Dr. Viana. And thank you as well to Escuela Talier, the Filipinas Foundation, Inc., our partners in promoting Paco Park. And to our viewers as well, please stop by Paco Park, open from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. every day. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.